Today we're going to be trying something which may or may not be a great idea. We're going to be rebuilding this 4L60 transmission to install in this all-wheel drive, LS swapped, and supercharged truck known as the second gen Cyclone. Now, the reason why this may or may not be such a great idea is because, as everybody probably knows, the GM 4L60 is one of the weakest LS era automatic transmissions known to exist. I mean, we found out firsthand down at LS Fest during the Speed Stop Challenge when we lost second gear as a result of this band smoking on this drum. But rather than swap it out for a 4L80, 8HP70, or a more modern, more robust transmission, we're going to try our hand at upgrading with this whole stack of parts. So we've got the unit tore down last time. Most of the parts are cleaned up. We have an empty case with the rear bushing already installed. So let's see if we can't build ourselves a transmission. Now, at its core, an automatic transmission is probably one of the simplest yet most complicated things in your car's drivetrain. I mean, all it is really is a bunch of pistons and clutch packs that apply and disengage at different times to give you different gear ratios. But the way that it all works and stacks together is like, I don't know who came up with it, but they must have been on a different level. Because I can disassemble one, I can put it back together and make it work, but I don't know that I ever would have come up with this crazy design. So we'll go over all the new parts in just a second. We have quite a good assortment. We have a lot of different clutches. We have some hard parts that we're going to replace to upgrade the durability of the unit, make it shift better, firmer, more precise, and all that good stuff. But we got almost one of everything. So as far as terminology goes, there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 major parts inside a transmission. This is one of them. This is a piston. Basically a fluid that flows in behind it under pressure, under certain times when the solenoids are engaged. The piston will move up and it'll compress a clutch pack, which we'll show you in a second, and that stops motion. So that's kind of in a nutshell how a transmission works. This guy has to be keyed to the parking pawl to go around it. Next up, we have a return spring. Basically, this pushes the clutch back when the fluid is done being applied to it, and these are usually held in with snap rings. And these, we do need a special tool to squish it in place, called a spring compressor. Imagine that. It's kind of hard to see inside the case, but basically these little half-round shoes or arms, they just kind of go like that, push in on the spring. This is probably the hardest snap ring to get in the whole case because it's like way down in the bottom. So next we have this guy, which is what the output shaft connects to. Planetary gears on the inside. This is the parking pawl area, so when you shift to park, this is what holds it from turning. We've got ourselves a new bearing, and this goes in that bushing in the case. So we'll just put a little bit of this assembly gunk on here so it doesn't start up dry. I've actually got an uncle back home who does transmissions, really good at it. And I remember going over to the shop as a kid and seeing like zillions of transmissions just taken apart, sitting on benches and in the cleaner, and I'm like, how on earth would he get that put back together? I mean, I can keep track of one at a time, but that's about it for me. So next up is the rear planet. This is actually one of the upgrades that we're going to be doing. The OEM uses 4, these little guys right there. We are replacing it with a 5-pinion planet. Now, the trick is they make these aftermarket. You don't want to use them. The aftermarket ones suck. So this is a used but good condition OEM one. And a new bearing. Get ourselves a new Borg Warner Sprag, just like a one-way clutch. No idea why a transmission has a one-way clutch.
How exactly does a positive track rear end on a Plymouth work?
But it just does. There you go. Now we have everything from the center support rearward installed, and the next part to go in would be the sun gear. Just kind of goes in like, come on, goes in like so. But we're going to hold off on this because this guy here actually acts as a tool for another upgrade that we're going to have to do now. Just because we need to put that in, but we also need it as the tool. I did, however, want to give you guys the overview of all the parts that we're installing in this. Because there's a million different ways we could build a 4L60, and there's probably $1 million different dollars you could spend on upgraded parts. And this is not a full-blown max effort 4L60 build. We're upgrading it in key areas that's going to significantly increase the strength, but there's a few items on my wish list which I just, maybe on a stronger version, we'll put them in later on. But we did grab a bunch of stuff from Sonax and some basic rebuild parts as well. We grabbed the 5-pinion front planet. I already showed you the 5-pinion rear planet. Again, those are OEM stuff, the aftermarket stuff you do not want to use. We have the Sonax wider band with the red material on there, and we have a new drum to go along with it. We have the Sonax Smart Shell, which this is much stronger than stock. We have the Sonax shift kit, the performance pack. We have the Sonax servos, the super hold servo for 4th and 2nd. Just trying to keep everything kind of boxed up and organized. We have this reinforcement kit for the forward drum. I'll show you that in a second. But then of course we have all your basics like a bushing kit. We have new roller washers or roller bearings, selective washers, thrust washers. We have a new 8 friction forward clutch pack. That's a pretty good reinforcement. We have a new oil pump. We have the rest of the frictions and steels, and of course your basic rebuild kit with all the seals and whatnot. But what we need that little sun gear for is this reinforcement ring in the forward drum. Basically this is just going to be the perfect size press fixture. For this guy right here, it's just a little steel ring. And the reason why we want to do that is because the input shaft here is pressed into the forward drum here. And this is aluminum, which is fairly soft. And to prevent it from sort of twisting and rocking and rolling where it's not supposed to, this guy right here basically just presses on, and again, made from steel, so it's going to reinforce that spline area. Now, along with this, there's a different piston that we have to install because it makes that inner diameter larger. But like I said, we need this guy because it's the perfect size to go right there and press it on. So we'll hop on over to the press, we'll get that guy installed, then we'll jump back to the proper assembly sequence of the rear part of the gear train. I forgot to press the button, but you can imagine what pressing looks like. There you go, reinforcement ring installed. I'm just gonna swap out that bushing for a new one. Ow, that hurt. Ow. Turns out metal's actually pretty sharp when you got pointy gear teeth into it. I'll throw a link below for this kit that I got from Amazon. Actually, it's a really complete comprehensive kit, and it's perfect for doing work like this because you can put one right in the middle of the bushing so it doesn't distort, and put another slightly larger one on top, and that'll be what actually pushes the bushing down into place. No idea what this little piece is called, but it's got new bushings in it. Well, I'm guessing a lot of you guys are close to my age, and I don't know why I was thinking about the solar system, planets, I guess. 5 is better than 4. But then I got to thinking about poor old Pluto. Because when I was a kid, Pluto was the 9th planet. Now, for some reason, evidently, it's not a planet. Signs are getting old. This part's going to be hard to see, but now the output shaft just slides up through the center of all that, and then I got to put this snap ring on way down in there. So I'm going to move you guys out of the way and get that done. Hey Kevin, could I have you give me a hand for a moment? There's a little screwdriver right there on the table, right by that pump. Yep, yeah, anyone, doesn't really matter. I got a snap ring here. I need you to take that screwdriver and push the back side of it down. And there's gonna be, yep, there's a little groove. Kind of turn it side, yep, just like that. Okay, see if you can push it down in. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
That's a hard one-person job to do.
Yeah.
I think this forward drum here is the one that I'm the most impressed with. Like impressed in the sense of whoever came up with this idea, they had to have been a genius, because there's like 3 pistons inside this, 3 different clutch packs, all in this one stinking drum. It's like, I don't get it. It's like aliens came down and gave some technology people weren't ready for or something like that. I guess if aliens were going to come down and give anybody technology for transmission, you'd think it would be better than the 4L60. So maybe that theory's wrong. All right, the final clutch stack in this drum is, I believe, the 3-4. But either way, this is an upgrade because the OEM one holds 6 frictions and this holds 8. You get a 9, but when you do 9, they tend to get pretty thin. So we got this drum just about ready to go back in. The last step is just to replace these sealing rings. I've got 3 of them on. They're made from Teflon. It's not like an O-ring, so you gotta stretch them out, put them on, and then squish them back in. I don't have the appropriate like specialty tool for that, but I have a funnel, electrical tape, and a hose clamp, and it does the same thing. Press the ring down on the funnel, kind of stretches it out. Then you can slide it over the shaft. So as you can see, when you first put it on, the Teflon ring is super loose, but after you compress it, it looks like that. Start by giving it a couple of wraps of electrical tape. That just kind of protects the seal. Going to tighten her down and let it set for a second. There we have it. .22. So I just wanted to check in, play it before we went any further. Now I'm going to get the band in, and then we still have to rebuild the pump. So this end of the band is applied by the servo. The other band is held stationary by this anchor pin, which goes underneath the valve body. So we're coming up on day 3 of this automatic transmission rebuild. And I gotta say, I'm really enjoying doing something that's out of my comfort zone, out of my wheelhouse, and out of the area that I normally work in. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking back over my automotive career. I've rebuilt, I have no idea how many engines, how many rear axles. I've done suspension work and engine swaps and tuning and all these things, but aside from paint and body work, which I absolutely hate doing, transmission rebuild is kind of like the one thing that I don't spend a lot of time doing. And that's probably true with most of you guys also. But the thing to keep in mind is, like, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to do this every day. Just, you gotta jump in, you gotta learn. You can't be afraid to make mistakes and get your hands dirty. But it's like, after having done a project like this, it's so fulfilling to be able to drive it and say you did it yourself. So here's kind of where we're at right now. We have the gear train all in. We got that done yesterday. All the clutches, we did the air checks and things like that. And now we're moving on to the servo. This is what applies the band for 2nd and 4th gear. And with the Sonax kit, they give you an extra long pin. You just got to set clearance, which is basically grinding down the end of the pin. I think the spec on travel is something like 75 to 125 thousandths of an inch, so approximately 1/8 of an inch for you American speaking folks. No idea how many micrometers or kilometers or yards or whatever everyone else uses, but it's like that much clearance. Anyway, so I'll show you that process real quick. We'll get the servo in, then really from here, the only steps that we have left to do are the valve body, which that's just a lot of tedious, fiddly little teeny tiny parts and stuff, but we're well on our way. All right, so we take the pin, chuck it up in the drill so we can spin it. And while we spin it, we grind it. And we just take off a little bit at a time until we get our desired clearance. And they did mention that this pin is like 100 thousandths extra long, so you do have to grind a fair amount to get your desired travel. This is kind of a cool design because there's actually 2 different places that this piston assembly pushes on a pin. One here, I believe this is the 4th gear one, so it pushes like that. But then this second ridge right here, the 2nd gear piston, can also push on the pin, which does the same thing. It applies the band, but it kind of lets the pin float in between the cover piston and like the bore. Okay, I mean, we're in the ballpark. We're shy of 50 thousandths. Need to go a little bit more. No seals yet, of course. This is still mock-up. So that's all the way out against the snap ring. It's like 95 thousandths, which that's technically within our window. So there's three ways, and I've said this before, but there's three ways that you can increase the holding power of an automatic transmission. This is universal. I don't care, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Toyota, Nissan, whatever. It's all the same. One, you can increase the hydraulic pressure. Two, you can increase the surface area of the clutches. And three, you can upgrade the coefficient of friction of the clutch material. And in this build, we have done all three: hydraulic, surface area, and friction material. Okay, so we kind of time-lapsed through most of the installation of the shift kit, but there's a couple of valves that we had to put in, springs, you know, a shim, bigger spring and piston in here. Then we had the accumulator, which we did a pinless conversion on. There's a part here and another part in the case. Drilled some holes in the separator plate. This guy here. Now we just gonna put the check valves back in. We'll oil them up so they don't fall out. And we'll put this thing back together for good. And number 8 goes here. And just a little bit of this stuff everywhere kind of helps the gasket hold in place. And there we have it, a rebuilt 4L60, which I suppose is technically now a 4L65, which is much stronger than stock and ready to go into our supercharged, LS swapped, all-wheel drive, second-gen Cyclone. Now the question, you may be wondering, maybe not, how much did this all cost? What's the recipe? And how does that cost compare to the next best alternative, which may be a better alternative, of a 4L80 conversion? So, I'll just start at the top. What's the recipe that we use? I might forget one or two little parts, but here's basically what we did. We've got ourselves 5-pinion planets, OEM, both rear and front. We have the Sonax Smart Shell, I think they call it. We have the Sonax Super Servo for both 2nd and 4th gear. Those are 2 separate part numbers. A new OEM forward drum, Sonax wide band. We have the Sonax reinforcement ring that goes around the front, or where the input shaft goes into the forward drum. Basic rebuild kit. I picked that up from an online transmission supplier, and that has like the pump parts, the bearings, the seals, the bushings, the Teflon rings, filter, gasket, things like that. New wiring harness, Sonax shift kit, I think I mentioned that. But all told, that's more or less what we've done to upgrade the strength and rebuild this transmission. Spent about $2,000 on all those parts. So what would a 4L80 cost? At first, you might just look at a junkyard transmission. In my area, they're like $500 to $1,000 and think, hey, we're well on our way. But the conversion parts do add up in a hurry. And the first one for me, most 4-wheel drive guys wouldn't be affected this way, but I do have a NV149 full-time all-wheel drive transfer case. So we need a 32 spline input shaft for the transfer case. And for a NV149, those are about $700 by themselves. Drive shafts, front and rear, both will have to be modified, so call that another $500 to $600-ish. If we have a torque converter, which I would want to put a good converter in it, because this one I already had the Summit Pro LS 3200 style converter right there. So if I wanted something equivalent to that for a 4L80, you know, maybe a Circle D or something like that, I'd probably spend another $1,000. We could have a flex plate that bolts to the 5.3 to the 4L80. There's another 100, 150 here and there. You know, the little stuff, dipstick, cooler fittings, and so on. And then we just have a stock, who knows how many mile 4L80 in there, and we'd probably want to rebuild it, or at least I would. And so then by the time you do a rebuild kit, you've got, you know, more labor, which we're not counting labor, but you have easily another $500 or $600 in just replacement parts, clutches, steels, bearings, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't do the math on the fly. I forget what I even just listed out, but we'll put it up on the screen, and I believe the conversion cost of a 4L80 is much, much greater. Now, which one is going to hold more power? Well, a properly built 4L80 obviously is going to hold much more than any 4L60, but for what we're doing with a truck that weighs 3,900 pounds, I believe this transmission is actually going to last quite a while. You know, we'll do some average shenanigans, we'll do daily driving. I do want to go back to the drag strip this summer and run an 11-second pass. Totally believe that's doable. We were like 12 teens in Vegas on our only 2 passes that we made. So I'm excited. I think this is a good project. And my main thing is just, I wanted to try rebuilding 4L60. I've never been inside one, so I'm glad I did. How long will it last? We will find out together, but thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna get this transmission in the truck, take it out for a drive, which you'll probably see soon.